It's a great weekend in Milwaukee. Went in on Friday night, met some folks from the radio station there, 920 in Milwaukee, 1070 in Madison, Wisconsin. Went out to dinner. And then Saturday morning, got up and went to my normal calisthenics, Pilates, just to get ready for the sausage race. Went to Buffalo Wild Wings. I don't know how many people. They said around 700 or 800 people showed up. Didn't have anything to drink, no beers, just water. Low carb, and all of a sudden, next thing I know, it's ready for the sausage race. But prior to that, I got a chance to spend some time with Bob Uecker. I just listened to him. Longtime Brewer announcer. I just listened to Uecker, and then I was ready to go. Put me in a good, frame of mind, and I was ready to go. And then went down there and finished third. But he saw it all. He's seen it before many, many times. He's Bob Uecker, the Brewers announcer who joins us. What did you think? Just assess that from a professional broadcaster's viewpoint of watching the sausage race, Bob.
Talking about you?
Well, if you want to.
Oh, you were tight. You look good. I know it's not real comfortable inside those costumes because of a lot of times because the costumes aren't dried out from the day before from the people who wore them. And I know that's not comfortable in there, but I thought you gave a good account of yourself. I really did.
I don't know if have they washed those at all, like dry cleaned them? Because, it smelled bad in there.
Yeah, well, you can't wash them, Dan, because they're actually the skin of the animal that they use inside there.
The casing?
Yes, it's actually a casing. So that's where a little bit of the smell comes from. But it's not bad. It's the same thing you eat on the sausage.
Yeah. Well, we were breathing our own air. What people don't realize, I can't see. And then I realized, then my age started to set in as I got to home plate. And I went, oh, my God, don't die. And then I almost fell down.
Well, I think what happened, one of the people at the ballpark told me you were turned the other way. You were actually running backwards, so that's why I thought you really did good.
But I didn't want to do well. I thought you could identify me if I didn't do well because, you're not used to finishing first, so I was a tribute to you the way I ran that sausage race.
Well, when you were up in the booth talking to me before the race, I actually put a piece of tape down on the floor and you stepped on it, so when you were running by, I saw you right away. I had you all the way.
You've seen a lot of first pitches as well. When Fritzy threw out the first pitch, how would you rank that?
Fritzy did good. I was a little worried about rotator cuff surgery, and I don't know how he is today because throwing a pitch that far and really not having a chance to really warm up sometimes can take you out of the action for a long time.
Plus, he went out with sleeveless shirt on. Now, I don't know how many first pitches have been thrown out by guys who go sleeveless.
Well, there's a lot of people that went shortless too, so that was a plus for him. I thought he might do that. But he's got a nice pair of pipes on him.
He does. He has some guns. I'm trying to think. It's like a Gorman Thomas type look that Fritzy had.
Yeah, sort of like Gorman. Our head a little bit like that too.
Well, Fritzy wasn't afraid to display the gun show. In fact, Tim Hudson, the Braves pitcher, was looking at him and marveling at that.
That shows you what kind of problem Tim Hudson has.
He's the Brewers announcer, Bob Uecker, joining us on the show. We talk about styles all the time, and it depends on the team or the city. But I was wondering if your style, how would that work if you were let's say you did the Yankees games.
Yeah.
Could you be you doing the Yankee games?
Oh, I think so. I think, depending on what the game is, Dan, anybody can do it the way I do it. I don't make fun of anybody. I never make fun of players or rip anybody. I don't do that. I make up stories, and New York's a good story place. When the game is bad, I tell stories or talk about my career, and if you want to call it that. And it always brings everything back to a different level. And that's the part of it I enjoy, where I can do a little other stuff, do a little shtick once in a while, and still do the broadcast and still have a good time and still report the game.
At what point did you realize telling these stories, but doing so with a straight face, you never laugh, that was more impactful because people weren't sure if you're actually telling the truth The delivery. The delivery is what makes it great. But when did you realize that was going to add to this?
The first day I played in the big leagues, when people started laughing at me. That was my first swing, and people started laughing. So I thought maybe I had a smile on my face, so I thought I'm never going to do that again. And it worked.
Your kids appreciate the self-deprecation that you have about your career?
Well, it's not only now my career now, but even when I was playing, Dan. It was tough for me when I was playing because I'd take my kids to a game, and then after the game they'd want to ride home with a different player, stay at his house. It was a little testy once in a while.
Best player that you played with?
Well, there's been a lot of them, Dan. There's been a lot of great ones. The guys that I played with, of course, Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Bob Gibson with St. Louis, Richie Allen. There's been so many of them. And, of course, here in Milwaukee, watching Robin Yount throughout his whole career, Paul Molitor. But Robin tops the class here. And if you're talking about, the Braves moved out of Milwaukee and went to Atlanta. But, when you look at a guy like Hank Aaron, who I still see every once in a while, and there's so many of the other guys that have passed away. But Joe Torre was another guy that was a heck of a catcher with the Braves at the time, and saved my job a number of times by keeping on catching. He had a broken ankle one day, and I had to play every game down in Atlanta, and I begged Joe to come back, even with the cast on, just let him hit and I'd run. But that didn't work either. But there's been so many great ones that have passed through here and other teams that I played with. It's been a great time all the time, Dan. I always had a good time.
Who do you consider the all-time home run champ?
Hank Aaron? Oh, yeah, I do. I say that every time he's around. I really do. And whatever the other guys do, that's their business. But I was around him throughout his career, finished up here in Milwaukee. As a matter of fact, I was lucky enough to call his last home run here in Milwaukee. And I think he hit it against Dick Drago. I'm not sure.
But if you look at these that's what's hard because you've been around the game. You know what's real and what's not real. But as a broadcaster, as far as injecting your own opinion on something, you said you're not there to denigrate somebody.
Nope.
How hard is it to watch what might be considered not real as opposed to some of these guys you played with that you think, or, that they did it legitimately?
Well, to me, it's if it doesn't impact on the game, if it's not part of the game report that night, I don't take stories out of the newspaper or stories off of the news and inject them into the broadcast unless it pretends, unless it's part of the game itself. I don't know if they did these things. I've never seen it proven. They've had the trials and all the other stuff, but everything still seems to be on hold. And I can't judge that. It's going to be up to the people who vote for the Hall of Famers and the courts to judge who did what and if they did it at all. That's the tough part of it. But I still, keep in mind that the game is still the game. Baseball is still the game, and whatever happens outside of the game itself, I don't ever talk about that stuff. I really don't.
Just to be clear, you've never used performance-enhancing drugs.
Enemas. That's about all.
What was the hardest you made Johnny Carson laugh? Was there one moment where you went, "Wow, I just killed him"?
Well, I was telling him a story one night about. He asked me how I was over the winter. I said I had some surgery done over the winter. I had a hernia repaired for the coming season, and I told him I think they tied me too tight because it's happened a number of times now where I went to shake hands with somebody and my leg came up in the air and kicked him in the groin. And I said I have to go back for a repair on that thing, I think. We never really used scripts after so many shows that I was on there, and we kind of winged it. He asked me one night if do you need this stuff? I said, I thought it was for you. And from there on, we just, whatever happened. It was really good. I really had a great time with him.
How much do you get, the Harry Doyle, give us a sense of, major league announcer when you're, outside of Milwaukee. How often do you get that repeated to you with some of the lines that you had in those movies?
Well, when we were in the American League, the Brewers were still in the American League. Every time I went to Cleveland, and it was Sandy Alomar, and he was the guy that started it. None of the Indians players would call me by my name. They call me Harry Doyle. And a few years back, we went to Cleveland to play an interleague game at Harry Doyle night at the ballpark. So I went out and threw the first pitch, and I threw it outside, of course. Threw it back to the screen. So it was good. I had such a good time doing the film, Dan, and they let me kind of do what I wanted. I had a script down on the floor to let me know what the scene was, and then I just went from there and did a lot of the stuff I did myself and stuff that I do at the ballpark now. But they let me do kind of whatever I wanted. It was a good time. I had a good time doing them. Major League 3 was on airplanes the next day. That's how bad it was. Piper Cubs. He's
Bob Uecker, the Hall of Famer, the career stats. I don't know why we don't call batting 200, the Uecker line instead of the Mendoza line. Because, yeah. You batted 200. I think it's a disservice to you. We bring in, Mario Mendoza. That it's the Mendoza line.
Well, I always look at it on this side too. It tied me with another sports great, averaging 200 or better for a 10-year period, and that was Don Carter, one of our bowlers.
It was great to see you, Uke. Keep up the sense of humor.
Thank you, Dan. Good seeing you. Good being with you. And hi to all the guys. Great being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Uke. That's Bob Uecker, Brewers announcer. It was fun. Fun just spending time with him while the game's going on, and he wasn't on the radio at the time, and just sitting there just telling you stories. And everything's a story. Great sense of humor. What, Trey? He's been doing it 42 years. 42 years.